story is from Cavalis. I stayed the night at my crazy uncle's place, and I'm still traumatized by what I saw. There's one in every family. Ours shows up each Thanksgiving. Trucker hat, worn shirt, faded jeans. We get to listen to his diatribes about the economy, the fake moon landing, and how Big Brother is trying to kill us with weather manipulation. It's not natural, he says, clutching a turkey drumstick. Those white strikes in the sky, it's population control. Someone's got to do something about it. Typically, these conversations only last a few minutes. My family has learned the art of distracting him with questions like, "So, Uncle Hank, how's the new boat? Are you enjoying retirement? Did you get your hip looked at?" But this last time, several Thanksgivings ago, it got really bad. Uncle Hank had a little too much to drink, got on one of his rampages and wouldn't stop. "The government's cooking up another virus," he shouted. "It'll make Ebola look like the flu. It'll go airborne and wipe out 70% of the population. We've got to rise up." His tirade started to make Grandma sob. She had just lost Grandpa and was still processing her grief. Dad shifted in his seat, pissed, then leaped up. "Enough," he said, and escorted Uncle Hank out of the room. "Listen, I'm sorry," Hank apologized. But Dad let him outside and slammed the door. I didn't see much of him after that. But then, a few years later, my girlfriend Vanessa and I had to drive south to our new university. She had just been accepted to a master's program and wanted to check out the campus. I was so proud. We were navigating an isolated road when our GPS stopped working. Before long, our car ended up in the middle of a forested back road surrounded by darkness. "See anything?" Vanessa asked, checking for road signs. "No," I said, grinning my eyes. The sunlight was vanishing. Then, the car shuddered violently. "Shit!" I pulled over and parked. Smoke billowed out from the hood as Vanessa and I got out. It was so cold the air clung to our skin. We pulled our jackets close. I didn't have a flashlight, so Vanessa held her phone over me as I peered under the hood. I couldn't see what was wrong. I called the tow truck company. They told me they couldn't be there until the next day. Damn. I turned to Vanessa. Cold air biting my skin. "Looks like we're stuck here for the night." She buried her hands in her pockets, shivering. "Do you know anyone here?" I frowned as I thought, yeah, I know someone. I made the call. It was about an hour later when Uncle Hank's truck appeared down the road. He pulled up behind my car and stepped out wearing his signature cowboy boots. "Wee-hee," Uncle Hank whistled. "What have we got here?" "Hi, Uncle Hank." I offered my hand to shake his, but he just gave me a big bear hug. You know, the kind that feels like your ribs are about to break. Then he turned to Vanessa. "Who's this?" "Vanessa," she said, and shook his hand. "Thanks for saving us." "My pleasure is what anyone would do for family." Hank turned and peered inside my vehicle. He couldn't figure out what was wrong either. "Well, looks like the mechanic will have to sort this out." He dusted off his hands on his pants. "Why don't you stay over at my place? I'll drive you to the shop in the morning." "That'd be great, Uncle Hank." Vanessa and I got our bags, left the keys in my car, climbed into Uncle Hank's truck, and drove off. We were in the cab for about 5 minutes when Uncle Hank cleared his throat. "So, where'd you two meet?" "University," I said. "Ah." He leaned over, made eye contact with Vanessa. "Universities are for brainwashing. Lizard people use them as tools for indoctrination." "Lizard people?" she tell she was uncomfortable. Best way to tell a lizard person is to, so, Uncle Hank, I piped in, how's your boat running? Oh, that old thing, he thought. Boat's fine, but the damn thing keeps breaking down. Just last weekend, I smiled and relaxed, satisfied my question had diverted him. About 30 minutes later, we were at his place. It was a small building in the back end of nowhere. There was another house for miles. Come on in, he said, and held the door open for us. Don't break anything or I'll murder you. Vanessa and I looked at each other, disturbed by his off-putting joke. Just kidding, he said and pointed to a room down the hall. You lovebirds can take the guest room. He signaled to another. There's a bathroom, master's bedroom, around the corner. If you hear any strange noises, don't come looking for me. Vanessa and I looked at each other. What? I'll let you two get unpacked. Good night. He disappeared around the corner as I helped Vanessa move our bags to the guest room. A few minutes later, Vanessa went to the bathroom to get ready for bed. I stored our stuff in the closet and Uncle Hank popped in. Psst, Tommy. Yes, Uncle Hank. Your girlfriend. Is she a flat earther? A what? Flat earther. Like, does she believe the earth is round, or... He made a horizontal motion with his hands. I thought the question was strange, but I humored him. I don't know, Uncle Hank. I'll have to ask her. Please do. He just stood there looking at me. I prayed the awkward moment would pass, but it kept going. Finally, the sound of cascading water hit our ears. Vanessa must have started the shower. Well, I better eat the hay. Uncle Hank rapped his knuckles on the door. You lovebirds get some sleep. And remember, you hear any strange noises, don't come knocking. The repeated comment creeped me out, but I shrugged it off. It was one night, how bad could it be? Okay, Uncle Hank. He wandered into the hall, footsteps pattering. I heard the door close and thanked God he was gone. A few hours later, I flopped into bed next to Vanessa, both dressed and ready to sleep. I held her hand as I drifted off. Later that night, God only knows when, I felt someone stir me awake. It was Vanessa. Tom! What? I sat up and rubbed the grogginess from my eyes. It's your uncle. I heard a loud moan come from the hall, desperate, bleeding, like someone was having a violent seizure. I sat up and listened. Another agonizing squeal erupted from his bedroom, like a person was being eaten alive. What the hell is that? Vanessa said. I don't know. I scrambled up and went to the door. Another painful groan. Is your uncle okay? I'm sure he is. It sounds like he's dying. The screams grew louder, then a gasp of pain, almost sob-like. Oh my God, Tom, do something. He told us to leave him alone. Just make sure he's alright. The groans turned into a series of belly-wrenching screams. I ventured off the room. Ah, God, help me, help. It was Uncle Hank, wailing in misery. I raced to his bedroom door, pounded on it. Uncle Hank, what's going on in there? Another loud scream. I twisted the knob. It was locked. God, no, help me. Ah, his voice sounded shell-shocked, entreating. I'm coming in. I backed up and slapped my shoulder into the door. Bang. Then again. Bang. Help me. Ah. Finally, I broke through. Uncle Hank's bedroom was dark except for a silver of moonlight peering through the window. Hank was sitting on the edge of his bed, gasping, and something small, no bigger than a bulldog, was sitting on his shoulders, whispering into his ears. No, please, I can't take any more. Hank begged. The shape's voice sounded eerie and soft, almost seductive, but I couldn't tell what it was saying. Please, no more. I grabbed back, trying to rationalize the situation. Your lies hurt so much. Then my voice slipped out of my throat. It must have been a gut reaction but his grip was strong. Uncle Hank leaned in close, his breath hot against my face. You should have listened to me, Tommy. I nodded, begging to be let go. The weird shape was still atop his shoulders, whispering. It was so dark I couldn't tell what it was. But it had glowing yellow eyes, and the smell, I can't even describe it. You must not tell anyone what you've seen, Uncle Hank said. I was so scared. What's even happening? I just nodded, sweat pouring down my face. Uncle Hank removed his hand and backed away. Go to bed, Tommy. I popped my head, stumbled back into the hall, my mind swirling. I staggered to our bedroom, leapt inside, shut the door. Vanessa just stared at me from the bed, white-knuckling her comforter. What happened? I don't know. Seriously, Tom, what was it? I don't know. Is he alright? I can't tell you. I just flopped in bed, silent, not wanting to make any more noise. Why won't you tell me? Trust me. I can't. Vanessa frowned and turned away. I sank back into my sheets, delirious, hoping to disappear. Needless to say, I didn't sleep much that night. Next morning, I could hear Uncle Hank whistling through the house, getting ready for the day. 5 minutes later, he knocked on our door. You kids want something to eat? Vanessa and I just finished packing. We were both dressed and ready to go. No, thanks. Alright, come on out when you're ready and I'll drive you over. No long after, Uncle Hank had shuttled us to the shop. We got to our car, told the mechanic about our problems. Case closed. Uncle Hank pulled me aside after I had finished talking with the mechanic. Now listen, Tommy, about last night. It's okay, we don't need to talk about it. No, I need to apologize. You see, I've got this cat. A cat! Sometimes when I get scared, it comes to me and sits on my shoulder. It tells me things to comfort me. I just stood there, not knowing what to say. Last night, it was telling me about my past. Uncle Hank's voice drifted away as my mind blocked out his words. Anyway, he slapped a hand on my shoulder, reassuring me. I'm sorry for overreacting. Let's keep this between us, alright? Okay, Uncle Hank. He hiked back to his truck, waving goodbye to Vanessa. Take care of my nephew. Will do. She waved, grateful to see him going. Uncle Hank got in the truck, backed out, and merged onto the road. Vanessa frowned. You're still not going to tell me what happened? I just shrugged. How could I? I didn't even know what had happened. My eyes glanced back to Uncle Hank's truck as it shrank in the distance. In the rear window, I could barely notice a small bulldog-sized creature perched upon his shoulders, its yellow eyes focused on me. I had no idea what it was, but I knew this. It sure as hell wasn't a cat. I'm just checking some comments. Okay. Someone said it was a monkey. I thought it was a monkey. I think we'll never know. The next story is from X. I top notch. If you're reading this, it's already too late. I wish I could say I took the job at the old Breerwood Asylum because I was brave, or curious, or even desperate for a thrill. The truth is, I needed the money. I've been laid off from my last gig, rent was overdue, and the ad for a night watch position at the edge of town promised more than I'd made in months. The only catch was the location. Briarwood, a sprawling ruin of red brick and broken windows, long since abandoned by the state and left to rot at the edge of the woods. It was the kind of place people crossed the street to avoid, even in daylight. The kind of place that made the local news every few years, usually after some daring high schooler tried to spend the night and came running out at dawn, pale and shivering, refusing to talk about what they'd seen. experience necessary. I figured I'd be sitting in a booth, maybe walking the perimeter a few times, drinking coffee, and scrolling my phone until sunrise. Easy money, or so I thought. The night before my first shift, I did what any sane person would do. I googled it. Briarwood Asylum Night Watch. The results were mostly urban legends, grainy YouTube explorations, and a handful of Reddit threads with titles like Never Work Security at Briarwood and Rules for Surviving the Asylum. I read them all, half laughing at the melodrama, half wishing I hadn't. The rules were always vague, like warnings passed around the campfire. Don't go inside after dark, one post insisted, though nobody explained why. If you hear music, cover your ears. Never answer if someone calls your name. Don't look at the window from the inside. There were more, but they all blurred together, half superstition, half dare. I copied them into a note on my phone, just in case. It felt silly, but I'd always been a little superstitious, and I figured it couldn't hurt. I packed a bag with the essentials: flashlight, thermos, a couple of sandwiches, and a paper bag I'd already read twice. I left my lucky coin at home, thinking it was better not to bring anything personal to a place like this. The last thing I did before leaving was text my sister. Starting a new job tonight. If you don't hear from me by noon, call the cops. She sent back a string of laughing emojis, but I noticed she didn't say good luck. The drive out to Briarwood took longer than I expected. The road wound through thick woods, the trees pressing close on either side, branches scraping the roof of my car. I kept the radio low, the DJ's voice a thin thread against the growing dark. By the time I saw the asylum gates looming out of the mist, my hands were slick on the wheel. The building itself was worse than the photos. 3 stories of crumbling brick, windows boarded up or smashed out, the front steps sagging under their own weight. Weeds choked the driveway, and the old iron gates hung open, one twisted off its hinges. I parked beside a battered security shack just inside the fence, the only structure that looked like it might still have working electricity. The air was thick with the smell of rain and mildew. I slung my bag over my shoulder and made my way to the shack, the gravel crunching under my boots. The door creaked open with a reluctant groan, and I stepped inside, blinking as my eyes adjusted to the dim light. The interior was cramped but tidy: a battered desk, a folding chair, a bank of ancient monitors showing grainy feeds from cameras mounted around the perimeter. Someone had left a half-empty mug of coffee on the desk, the surface scummed over with mold. I wrinkled my nose and set my bag down, taking stock. There was a logbook on the desk, the cover worn smooth by years of nervous hands. I flipped it open, scanning the last few entries. Most was short and businesslike. All clear. 2 a.m. Patrol complete. 4 a.m. But the handwriting changed near the end, growing shaky and cramped. The last entry was dated 3 days ago. It just said, "Heard music again. Staying in the shack tonight." No signature. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. I checked the rest of the check, looking for any sign of the last night watch, but found nothing except the battered thermos in the trash and a faded jacking hanging on a hook. I wondered if it quit, or if it just stopped coming in. Maybe it found a better job. Maybe he'd listened to the warnings. I settled into the chair and powered up the monitors, watching as the cameras flickered to life. The feeds were mostly static, but I could make out the main gates, the overgrown courtyard, and the front steps of the asylum. One camera showed the rear loading dock, the door hanging open on rusted hinges. Another showed the old playground, the swings creaking in the breeze. I tried not to imagine them moving on their own. I pulled out my phone and opened the note with the internet rules, reading them over one more time. Don't go inside after dark. That one seemed easy enough. The shack was just outside the main building, and supervisor. Children laughing in the courtyard, no children on site. I wondered if the same person had written them all, or if the fear just speeded in over time. It was around midnight when I heard the first sound. It started as a faint melody drifting to the rain, a few notes of a lullaby played on an old piano. I froze, heart pounding, and remembered the rule. If you hear music, cover your ears. I pressed my hands over my ears, feeling ridiculous, but the music grew louder, winding through the night like smoke. I squeezed my eyes shut, counting to 30. When I opened them, the music was gone. I let out a shaky breath and checked the monitors. Nothing bad changed. The courtyard was empty, the gate still closed. I told myself it was just my imagination, the wind playing tricks. But I kept my hands close to my ears for the rest of the night just in case. At 2 a.m., I heard my name. It was faint, almost lost in the hiss of rain on the roof, but unmistakable. Ellie. My heart skipped. I hadn't told anyone at the agency my name, and I was sure I hadn't used it online. The voice was soft, almost pleading. Ellie, come here. I gripped the edge of the desk, knuckles white, and remembered the rules. Never answer if someone calls your name. I stayed silent, staring at the monitors, willing the voice to stop. After a minute, it faded, leaving only the sound of my own rage breathing. I spent the rest of the night on edge, jumping at every creak and groan from the old building. At one point, I caught myself staring at the asylum's windows, trying to see inside. I looked away quickly, heart hammering, and focused on the monitors. The rules didn't say what would happen if I broke them, but I wasn't eager to find out. Just before dawn, I found something wedged behind the desk. A battered, spiral-bound notebook, the cover stained and torn. I flipped it open, squinting in the dim light. The handwriting was cramped and hurried, the ink smudged in places. The first page was dated almost a year ago. First night at Briarwood. They say it's just stories, but I'm not so sure. I turned the page, reading on. The entries were short at first, then grew longer, more frantic. Heard footsteps in the hall, doors opening and closing. Saw something in Ward B, not going back. I closed the notebook, hands shaking. I planned to read more, but the sun was rising and I wanted nothing more than to get in my car and drive home. As I locked the shack behind me, I glanced back at the asylum. The windows seemed to watch me, empty and waiting. I told myself it was just a job, just a building, just another night. But as I drove away, the rules echoed in my mind and I wondered what I'd gotten myself into. The second night felt different from the start. I tried to tell myself it was just nerves, that I was still getting used to the routine, but the air around Briarwood was heavier, as if the mist had thickened and settled into my bones. I arrived just before dusk, headlights cutting through the gloom, and parked in the same spot beside the battered security shack. The asylum loomed in the rearview mirror, its windows black and blind, the brickwork sleek with rain. I hesitated before getting out, watching the tree line for movement, but there was nothing out there except the slow creep of shadows. Inside the shack, everything was as I'd left it. The monitors flickered with static, the logbook laid open on the desk, and my battered thermos waited for me like a small comfort. I set my bag down and checked the perimeter again, flashlight in hand, boots crunching over gravel and wet leaves. The fence was intact, the gate still chained, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching from the asylum's upper floors. I kept my eyes down, following the path around the building, and made a point not to look at the windows. By the time I finished my round, the sky was a deep bruised purple, and the first stars were blinking through the clouds. I ducked back into the shack, locking the door behind me, and poured a cup of coffee. My hands were steadier than the night before, but my mind kept drifting Religious liability, he wrote. Don't want anyone falling through the floorboards. But as the entries went on, the tone shifted, the handwriting grew sloppier, the sentence shorter, as if it'd been written in a hurry. Lights on in Ward B again. No power to that part of the building. There's someone humming in the hall. Didn't check it out. Kids laughing in the courtyard. No kids here. Thought I saw someone by the swings. Gone when I looked again. Don't go inside after midnight. That's what the old guy said. He didn't say why. I shivered, glancing at the clock. It was only a little after 9. The night's still young. I set the notebook aside and checked the monitors. The feeds were mostly useless, but every so often a shape would flicker across the screen. A branch swaying, a stray cat darting through the weeds, something too blurry to make out. I told myself it was just a low resolution, the camera sensor struggling with the dark. Around 10, I heard the music again. It was faint, barely more than a few notes drifting through the rain, but unmistakable. I froze, heart thudding, and pressed my hands over my ears. The melody twisted and wrapped, growing louder, closer, and it felt like it was playing inside my skull. I counted to 30, then to 60, and finally the music faded, leaving only the hiss of static from the monitors. I let out a shaky breath and tried to laugh it off, but it didn't feel funny. I remember the Reddit post, if you hear music over your ears, and wonder what would happen if I didn't. I made a mental note to never find out. The rest of the night passed slowly. I read more of Mark's journal, the entries growing stranger as the days went on. He wrote about doors opening and closing on their own, cold spots that lingered in the halls, voices whispering from behind locked doors. Sometimes I think I see someone watching from the 3rd floor, he wrote. Tall, thin, always in the same window. When I blink, he's gone. There was a gap in the journal, a few pages torn out, the edges ridged. The next entry was dated 2 weeks later. The handwriting was almost illegible. Something's wrong with the cameras. Keep showing the same loop. Saw myself walking the grounds, but I was in the shack. Don't look at the windows. Don't answer if they call your name. Don't let them know you can see them. I closed the notebook, rubbing my eyes. The shack felt colder, the air pressing in on all sides. I checked the monitors again, looking for anything out of place. The courtyard was empty, the gate still closed, but the camera facing the playground was dark. The feed cut off by static. I tapped the screen, but nothing happened. Just after midnight, I heard footsteps outside, slow, deliberate, crunching over gravel. I killed the lights and pressed myself against the wall, listening as the steps crickled the shack. The footsteps paused by the door, then continued around the building, fading into the distance. I waited a full 5 minutes before turning the lights back on, my heart pounding in my throat. I tried to convince myself it was just a stray animal, maybe a deer or a fox, but the steps had sounded too heavy, too purposeful. I checked the monitors, but all I saw was the empty yard, the broken swings creaking in the wind. I went back to the journal, searching for anything that might explain what was happening. Mark's entries grew more frantic, the lines barely legible. Don't go near Ward B. Don't even look at the door. Heard something scratching from inside. Smells like smoke. Lights on in the west hall. No power. Saw someone moving inside, not going in. Dreamed I was inside, couldn't find my way out. Woke up with mud on my boots. I looked down at my own boots, clean and dry, and shivered. I wondered if Mark had gone inside, if he'd broken one of the rules without realizing it. I wondered what had happened to him. The hours dragged by. I made another round of the fence, flashlight beam darting over the tangled weeds. I saw someone standing by the front steps, a tall figure, unmoving face lost in the shadows. I blinked, and the screen went dark. When the feed returned, the steps were empty. I spent the rest of the night reading and rereading Mark's journal, searching for patterns in his fear. The rules he'd written were different from the ones I'd found online, stranger, more desperate. Don't let them know you can see them. Don't go near Ward B. Don't look at the windows. I wonder how many rules there really were and how many I'd already broken without knowing. Dawn comes slowly in gray, the sky barely lighter than the night. I locked up the shack and walked to my car, glancing back at the asylum one last time. The windows were empty, but I felt their gaze on my back all the way to the road. At home, I tried to sleep, but my dreams were filled with music and laughter, footsteps echoing down endless halls. I woke up with a taste of mud in my mouth and the feeling that I'd forgotten something important. I told myself it was just a job, just another night. But as I drifted off again, Mark's words echoed in my mind, and I wonder what I'd do if the rules stopped working. I didn't want to go back for the third night. I lay in bed long after my alarm went off, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself that I was being ridiculous. It was just a job, just a building, just another night. But the memory of Mark's frantic handwriting, the echo of music in my dreams, and the way my name had floated through the rain like a secret made my skin crawl. I told myself I needed the money. I told myself I was stronger than a few ghost stories. I got dressed, packed my bag, and drove to Briarwood with my jaw clenched tight and my hands shaking on the wheel. The asylum looked different in the fog. The mist rolled thick over the grounds, swallowing the fence and softening the jagged lines of the building. The windows were dark, but I could have sworn I saw movement behind the glass as I pulled up. I parked by the shack, engine idling, and sat for a long moment listening to the tick of the cooling metal. I thought about calling the agency and quitting. I thought about driving away and never looking back, but I got out, locked the car, and stepped into the gloom. Inside the shack, the air was stale and cold. The monitors flickered with static, the logbook lay open on a blank page, and Mark's journal waited for me on the desk. I set my bag down and checked the perimeter, flashlight beams slicing through the fog. The fence was intact, the gates chained, but the air felt charged as if the whole world was holding its breath. I made my way around the building, boots squelching in the wet grass. The mist muffled every sound, turning my footsteps into dull thuds. I kept my eyes down, refusing to look at the windows, but I felt them watching, cold and patient. When I passed the playground, the swings creaked. Though there was no wind, I hurried back to the shack, heart pounding, and locked the door behind me. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat at the desk, staring at the monitors. The feeds were worse than ever, lines of static rolling across the screens. I tapped the camera, showing the front steps, trying to clear the picture, but the image only smeared as if something was pressing against the lens from the inside. I opened Mark's journal, flipping to the last entry I'd read. The handwriting was jagged, the words running together. Don't let them know you can see them. Don't answer the phones. Don't go inside, not even for a second. I frowned, remembered my first night when I stepped into the entryway to check the fuse box after the shack lights had flickered. I hadn't thought anything of it at the time. The rules I'd found online hadn't said anything about the threshold, but Mark's words made my stomach twist. I turned the page. The next entry was shorter, almost a scroll. Something's wrong with the clocks. Time doesn't move right in there. Saw myself in the hall, but I was outside. If you're reading this, you've already broken the rules. I sat back. The shack, suddenly too small, too close. I tried to remember exactly how long I'd been inside the asylum last night. 5 minutes answer if someone calls your name. Don't look at the windows from the inside. I wonder how many rules there really were, and how many I'd missed. Just after midnight, the shack phone rang. The sound was shrill, slaking through the silence. I started at it, pulse thudding in my ears. The agency had never called before. I let it ring, counting the seconds, but it didn't stop. After the 10th ring, I yanked the cord from the wall. The ringing continued, echoing faintly from somewhere deeper in the building. I pressed my hands to my ears, but the sound wormed its way through the walls, vibrating in my bones. I remembered Mark's warning, don't answer the phones. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing the sound to stop. Eventually, it faded, leaving only the hiss of static from the monitors. I opened the journal again, searching for answers. The next entry was barely legible, the ink smeared and frantic. They know I went inside. I see them everywhere now. In the windows, in the halls. They call my name, but it's not my voice. If you see yourself, don't follow. I shivered, thinking of the figure on the monitor, the way it had seemed to watch me. I wondered if Mark had seen himself, if he'd followed, if that's why he disappeared. The shack felt colder, the air thick and wet. I wrapped my jacket tighter and tried to focus on the routine. I made it around of the fence, flashlight beam darting over the grass. The mist was thicker now, swirling around my legs. I kept my eyes down, refusing to look at the asylum. When I passed the playground, I heard laughter, high and thin, drifting into the fog. I froze, heart pounding, and remembered the rule. If you hear children laughing, turn off your flashlight until it stops. I clicked off the beam, standing in darkness, breath held tight in my chest. The laughter grew louder, echoing from all directions, then faded as suddenly as it had begun. I turned the flashlight back on and hurried back to the shack. Inside, the monitors flickered again. The camera facing the main entrance showed a door swinging open, though I knew it was chained shut. The feed glitched, and for a moment I saw a figure standing just inside the doorway, face pressed to the glass. I blinked, and the screen went dark. I sat at the desk, staring at the journal. The next entry was the last. If you're reading this, it's too late. You've already broken the rules. Don't let them know you're afraid. Don't let them see you're looking. Don't let them hear your name. Don't go inside. Don't go inside. Don't go inside. I closed the notebook, hands shaking. I tried to remember exactly what I'd done that first night. I stepped over the threshold just for a minute to check the fuse box. I looked at the windows, trying to see inside. I'd heard my name and tried to ignore it, but I'd listened. I'd broken the rules, not knowing what they really were. The shack phone rang again, the sound muffled and distant. I ignored it, staring at the monitors. The feeds flickered, showing empty halls, broken swings, the dark line of the fence. But in every frame, I saw movement at the edges, shadows slipping through doorways, faces pressed to the glass, hands reaching for the locks. I spent the rest of the night reading and rereading Mark's journal, searching for something I'd missed. But the words blurred together, the warnings looping in my mind. Don't go inside. Don't let them hear your name. Don't look at the windows. Don't answer the phones. Dawn came slow and gray, the sky barely lighter than the night. I locked up the shack and walked to my car, glancing back at the asylum one last time. The windows were empty, but I felt their gaze on my back all the way to the road. At home, I tried to sleep, but my dreams were filled with laughter and music, footsteps echoing down the endless hall. I woke with the taste of mud in my mouth and the feeling that I'd forgotten something. I told myself it was just a job, just another night. But as I drifted off again, Mark's words echoed in my mind, and I wondered what I'd do if the rules stopped working. By the fourth night, I was running on nerves and caffeine. I barely slept during the day, haunted by dreams that felt more like memories, long, echoing corridors, music that twisted in and out of tune, laughter that turned to screams. I'd wake with my heart rules. Don't go inside, don't go inside, don't go inside. I tried to convince myself that stepping over the threshold that first night had mattered, that I hadn't really entered the building, not the way Mark meant, but the more I read, the less certain I became. I flipped through the journal again, searching for anything I'd missed. There were pages I hadn't noticed before, stuck together with old coffee stains. I pried them apart carefully, heart thudding. The handwriting was worse here, the lines jagged and uneven as if Mark had been reading in the dark. They watch from the windows. Sometimes I see myself watching back. The phone rings even when it's unplugged. The music is getting louder. I think it's coming from Ward B. Ward B. The name sent a chill through me. I didn't mention it in a logbook in Mark's early entries, but I never seen it with my own eyes. The floor plan, tapped to the wall of the shack, showed the main entrance, the admin wing, the old dormitories, and, tucked away at the back, Ward B. The door was supposed to be chained shut, but Mark's warnings made me wonder. I checked the monitors, but the camera covering the back wing was dead. Nothing but static. I tried to tell myself it was just a writing issue, watering the lines, but the knot in my stomach tightened. I made my first round of the fence, moving quickly, eyes fixed on the ground. The mist was thicker than ever, swirling around my ankles, muffling the world. When I passed the playground, the swings were still, but I heard the faintest echo of laughter, high and thin, just at the edge of hearing. I kept walking, refusing to look back. Back in the shack, I poured another cup of coffee and stared at the monitors. The feeds flickered, showing empty halls, broken glass, and, for a moment, a shape moving in the admin wing, a tall figure, thin as a shadow, gliding past the windows. I blinked, and it was gone. I opened the journal again, flipping to the last few entries. Mark's words were barely legible, written in a trembling hand. I went inside. I had to. The music wouldn't stop. It's louder in Ward B. I think that's where they are. I saw someone. Looked like me, but not. Don't follow. Don't let them see you. The shack phone rang, shrill and insistent. I stared at it, refusing to move. The ringing grew louder, echoing in my skull until I wanted to scream. I pressed my hands over my ears, but the sound wormed its way through, vibrating in my bones. I remembered Mark's warning. Don't answer the phones. I waited until the ringing stopped, breath coming in shallow gasps. I tried to focus on the routine. I checked the logbook, made another round of the fence, but the air felt wrong. Charged, electric, as if a storm were about to break. When I passed the back of the building, I saw that the door to Ward B was ajar, the chain hanging loose. My flashlight flickered, the beam dancing over peeling paint and rusted hinges. I should have turned back. I should have locked myself in the shack and waited for dawn, but something pulled me forward. A need to know, to see for myself what had happened to Mark. I stepped up the door, heart hammering, and peered inside. The hallway beyond was dark, the air thick with dust and the faint sour smell of rot. My footsteps echoed on cracked linoleum, each step louder than the last. The music was louder here, a twisted lullaby played on broken keys echoing down the corridor. I pressed my hands over my ears, but the sounds seeped through, wrapping around my thoughts. I followed the hallway, passing empty rooms, doors hanging open like broken mouths. The walls were covered in scratches, words carved deep into the plaster. Help! Don't look! They're here! My flashlight flickered, the beam catching on something at the end of the hall. It was a door, half open, lights slipping onto the darkness. I crept closer, every instinct screaming at me to run. The music was deafening now. Deafening. The notes twisting and warping, turning into voices that whispered my name. Inside the room I found Mark. He was slumped against the far wall, knees drawn to his chest, eyes wide and staring, his killed my flashlight, pressing myself against the wall, breath held tight in my chest. The footsteps paused outside the door. I saw a shadow slip past the crack, tall and thin, moving with an unnatural grace. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing myself to disappear. The music faded, replaced by a low, guttural whisper. Ellie, come here. I bit my tongue, refusing to answer. The footsteps moved on, fading into the dark. When I opened my eyes, the room was empty. Mark's body was still, the note clutched in his hand. I stumbled to my feet, heart racing, and fled down the hallway, the walls closing in on all sides. The music started again, louder than before, chasing me through the corridors. I burst out the door into the night, gasping for air. The mist was thicker now, swirling around my legs, hiding the world. I ran for the shack, slamming the door behind me, and collapsed in the chair, shaking. On the desk, Mark's journal laid open to a new page. The handwriting was mine. Don't go inside. Don't let them see you. Don't let them hear your name. I stared at the words, heart pounding. I tried to remember writing them, but my mind was blank. The rules looped in my head over and over until they lost all meaning. The monitors flickered, showing empty halls, broken wings, and broken swings, and in every frame, a shadow moving at the edge of the light. I sat in the shack until dawn, afraid to move, afraid to breathe. When the sun finally rose, I locked the door behind me and walked to my car, glancing back at the asylum one last time. The windows were empty, but I felt their gaze on my back all the way to the road. At home, I tried to sleep, but the music followed me, twisting through my dreams. I woke up with the taste of dust in my mouth and the feeling that I'd left something behind. I told myself it was just a job, just another night. But as I drifted off again, Mark's words echoed in my mind, and I wondered if I'd really left the building at all. I barely remember driving to Briarwood for my fifth shift. The world outside the car windows was little more than a blur of gray and green, the trees pressing in so close they seemed to swallow the road behind me. I hadn't slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mark's face frozen in terror and heard the music winding through the empty corridors. I kept the radio off, needing the silence, but even then I could hear faint laughter in the back of my mind, the echo of footsteps that never quite faded. When I pulled up to the asylum, the sky was a flat, colorless wash, neither night nor day. The building looked the same as always, 3 stories of crumbling brick, windows like rows of empty eyes. The security shack stood alone, a small island of false safety in a sea of weeds and broken glass. I sat in the car for a long time, hands gripping the wheel, trying to summon the will to get out. I told myself it was just a job, just a building, just another night. But I knew that wasn't true anymore. I forced myself out of the car, boots scrunching on gravel, and made my way to the shack. The air was colder than it should have been, thick with the smell of rain and old rotting leaves. I unlocked the door and stepped inside, locking it again behind me out of habit, though I knew it wouldn't help. The monitors flickered with static, the logbook lay open on the blank page, and Mark's journal sat in the center of the desk waiting. I didn't bother making coffee. I didn't check the perimeter. I just sat down and stared at the monitors, watching the feeds cycle through empty halls, broken swings, the dark line of the fence. The camera covering Ward B was still dead, nothing but a gray smear. I tried not to think about what was waiting in that wing, about the cold, silent thing that wore Mark's face. I picked up the journal, flipping through the pages, searching for something I'd miss. The warnings were all there, scrawled in a hand that grew more frantic with every entry. Don't go inside. Don't let them see you. Don't let them hear your name. Don't answer the phones. Don't look at the windows. Don't follow if you see yourself. But it was too late for me. I'd already broken the rules. I set the journal down and leaned back in the chair, closing my eyes. The shack felt smaller than ever, the air thick and heavy. I tried to remember. It had felt like to be safe, to believe that rules could protect me, but all I could hear was the music music winding through the halls, growing louder with every beat of my heart. The phone rang. I stared at it, the sound sharp and insistent, cutting through the silence. I didn't move. I'd learned my lesson. The ringing grew louder, echoing in my skull until it seemed to fill the whole world. I pressed my hands over my ears, but the sound wormed its way in, vibrating in my bones. When it finally stopped, the silence was worse. I stood and walked to the window, careful not to look at the asylum. The mist had rolled in again, thick and swirling, hiding the world behind the fence. I could see the faint outline of the playground, the swings barely moving, though there was no wind. I thought I saw a figure standing by the gate, tall and thin, but when I blinked, it was gone. I turned back to the desk and found the journal open to a new page. The handwriting was mine. There are no patients anymore. The rules don't matter. If you're reading this, you're already inside. I stared at the words, heart pounding. I didn't remember writing them. I tried to close the journal, but my hands wouldn't move. The shack felt colder, the shadows pressing in from all sides. I heard footsteps outside, slow and deliberate, crunching over gravel. I killed the lights and pressed myself against the wall, breath held tight in my chest. The footsteps paused by the door. I heard a soft, familiar voice, my own, whispering from the other side. Ellie, come here. I squeezed my eyes shut, refusing to answer. The footsteps moved on, circling the shack, fading into the mist. I sat in the dark, listening to the silence, waiting for dawn, but the sky never changed. The world outside the window was stuck in that gray, endless twilight, the mist never lifting. The monitors flickered, showing empty halls, broken glass, and in every frame, a shadow moving at the edge of the light. I tried to write in the logbook, but the pen wouldn't work. The pages stayed blank no matter how hard I pressed. I thought about calling the agency, about begging them to send someone else, but the phone was dead. The line, nothing but static. I started to wonder if I'd ever really left the building at all. The hours stretched on, time losing all meaning. I read and reread Mark's journal, the worlds blurring together, warnings looping in my mind. I tried to remember the rules, to believe that they could still protect me, but they felt hollow now, like a prayer recited long after the faith was gone. I must have dozed off, because when I opened my eyes, the shack was different. The desk was gone, the monitors dead. The walls were peeling, covered in deep, rage scratches. Help! Don't look! They're here! The air was thick with the smell of rotten dust. I stood, heart pounding, and tried the door, but it wouldn't budge. The window was black, nothing but a reflection of my own pale face. I heard music, faint and distant, winding through the halls. I pressed my hand over my ears, but the sound grew louder, wrapping around my thoughts. I heard laughter, high and thin, echoing from all directions. I heard my name whispered over and over until it lost all meaning. I tried to remember the rules, but the words slipped through my fingers, lost in the dark. I don't know how long, I wondered. The shack was gone, replaced by endless corridors, doors that led to bricked up walls, rooms that changed every time I blinked. Sometimes I saw Mark standing at the end of a hallway, mouth open in a silent scream. Sometimes I saw myself, watching from the shadows, eyes empty and cold. I tried to find my way out, but every exit led toward B. I found a notebook on the floor, the cover stained and torn. I picked it up and opened into the first page. The handwriting was mine. Don't go inside. Don't let them see you. Don't let them hear your name. I tried to remember writing those words, but my mind was blank. Somewhere far away, I heard a car pull up outside the gates. I heard footsteps on gravel, the creak of the shack door, the shuffle of a new night watch settling in for their first shift. I tried to call out, to warn them, but my voice was lost in the music, swallowed nice, okay? You're a darling. So you're having a nice time at last. Oh yes, we're really enjoying ourselves. Good. Alright, sweetie, enjoy your evening. There's some cold beers in the basement fridge, by the way. Cool, thanks, Mom. Later. The line clicks and the call gets disconnected. I'm not surprised. Every time Mom and Val have a spa day at the resort, a few towns over, I don't see her again until morning. But then, they so rarely get a chance to see each other these days, so I'm just happy Mom gets to spend some time with her best friend. I go downstairs, grab some beers from the fridge in the basement and some snacks in the kitchen. It started raining outside now. I can hear the drops softly pattering on the skylight in the kitchen. The forecast this morning had announced a downpour tonight, so I figured it would be a perfect gaming night. I love the sound of rain. It suits me. Upstairs in my room, I fire up the old PlayStation and before I know it, I find myself in Skyrim. I could play this game forever. There is something about the atmosphere, the first-person view, the calm music that is so cozy. It feels like coming home and lulls me into a trance-like state of serenity. I wake up agonizingly slowly. First, I become aware of my breathing, then my heavy body and limbs. I feel the dizziness in my head, taste the sleep in my mouth before I can finally open my eyes. It's completely dark all around me. I blink a few times before I can make out the silhouettes of my room's furniture. I hear a hazy sound outside my window that I slowly realize is the rain. It's really coming down. And then suddenly it hits me. Mom. Fuck. I sit up and look for my phone on my bed. When I unlock the display, my stomach sinks. 2:14 a.m., 12 missed calls, 7 text messages, 2 from Mom, 5 from my voicemail. A glance at the upper right corner of my display reveals that my phone is still on mute. I gulp and open Mom's messages. What are you doing? 12:36 a.m. I checked into a motel. We'll talk about this in the morning. Mom, 1:21 a.m. Oh shit. I quickly dial the number of my voicemail and hold my phone to my ear. Welcome to voicemail. You have 5 new messages. First new message received Saturday, September 8th at 11:23 p.m. Hi sweetie, it's Mom. From the sound of it, calling from her car, I can hear the rain hitting the windshield and the softly squeaking sound of the windshield wipers. I'm just leaving the resort. Be home in about an hour. Hope you haven't fallen asleep already. Anyway, see you in a bit. Click. Second new message received Sunday, September 9th at 12:28 a.m. Hey sweetie, it's Mom. I am home. Where are you? Tsk, tsk, tsk. I hear some clicking, like she is pushing the doorbell button. Then silence. She knocks on the door. All the while, I can hear the rain all around her. I can see the light in the living room is still on. Come on, honey. Pick up, pick up, pick up. Silence. Rain. More knocking. More rain. Then a sigh. Right, I'll go through the garden. Hope you haven't forgotten to unlock the back door. Click. My mind races to last evening. Did I unlock the back door? I could swear I did. But then, clearly that is not the case since Mom couldn't get in. I go over the evening in my mind, but the more I try to remember, the more the memories slip away. Third message received Sunday, September 9th at 12:33 a.m. My voicemail continues without mercy. I hear loud knocking followed by the sound of a door handle that it repeatedly pushed down and released. Jesus, Andrew, what are you doing? Mom sounds angry now. Let me in, for crying out loud. It's cold and raining and I'm tired. Knocking, rain, the door handle, knocking, banging, rain. If this is a joke, it's not funny. Pick up the phone, Andrew. Silence, rain, knocking, rain, kicking, rain. A frustrated growl. God damn it, Andrew. Click. Well, that was my answer concerning the back door, I suppose. Fourth new message received Sunday, September 9th at 12:34 a.m. Banging on the door. The door handle is being furiously pushed down and released, but this time the sound is different. The sounds are more clear. The rain sounds like a loud patter on the window. A muted growl is heard. God damn it, Andrew. That's Mom's voice, but it sounds muffled like the rain. heart skips a beat. This recording is clearly from inside the house. Andrew, what are you doing? If this is some kind of prank, it's not funny. Silence, banging, kicking, rain. I can see you behind that curtain, Andrew. Cut it out now. I can't hear the rest of the message. My hand stiffens, my jaw clenches, my entire body is frozen, and I'm breathing, and my breathing stops as my gaze slowly wanders to my half-open door, peering into the darkness outside.